Welcome. What is the reason why people become leaders of excellence, both in their professional life and in their personal life? In this short and intense course, we are going to discuss how to develop our figures to transform ourselves into leaders of excellence, as well as addressing the changes in the figure of the leader throughout the evolution in the development of the organizations. What does the participant gain in this course? How he or she will benefit in the development of knowledge, skills, and training to raise his level of efficiency as leader through the knowledge of the leadership and its evolution over time. The participant will benefit from being able to adopt the traits that characterize the figure of the modern, advanced leadership adapted to our time and the needs of the next decade in this 21st century. I am José Manuel García-Lomas Allen-Perkins, President and first consultant of the firm García-Lomas Allen-Perkins, the ADO Corporation. For more than 40 years and approximately 3,000 days, I have been producing commercial orientation program, sales force training in the development of leadership and management in all forms of multinational enterprises in the business world and all types of economic activity. We developed this training course and many others exclusively through Patreon, where you can find other courses as well as countless content related to management, advanced sales techniques, the development of effective communication, strategic management and planning, advanced negotiation techniques, team building and teamwork, problem solving and decision making, empowerment, lateral transversal leadership, etc. Let us now look through the exact subjects that we will cover in this Leadership of Excellence course in further detail. First, different types of leaders according to the evolution in the development of organization. In-depth analysis of the 4 typical leaders of current organizations. 2. What are the main traits to build our profile of a leader of excellence? And 3. The analysis of our profile as leaders as well as the profile in the leaders of my organization. I encourage you to take a look and subscribe to our content in the format of videos, articles and courses at our Patreon address. Let us get started. First, different types of leaders according to the evolution in the development of organizations. In-depth analysis of the 4 typical leaders of current organizations. And the question is, are we good leaders? Leadership is based on human knowledge, and if we admit that our success is measured by the results of our collaborators, then part of our success will be to influence the attitude of our collaborators. Orders are not sufficient element to direct, because we all act based on our own goals. Hence the expression, not to the instructions chain, yes to the conviction chain. Everyone acts for their benefit. Therefore, our collaborator salesperson is the director's first client. He will buy my ideas as director if he sees his wishes fulfilled. That is, if we know how to satisfy his needs, if we know how to motivate him. Therefore, our objectives as leaders are to discover as soon as possible the objectives, motivations, problems, needs, etc., of our collaborators. In summary, Today people do not run because we tell them what to run. Well, because with 50 or 60% of their running abilities, they cover the record. People will run if they want to run, and when does that happen? When people feel that their own goals are at stake. For this reason, the leader must be able to put his objectives as leader in line with the different objectives of each of his different collaborators, applying for this the direction through motivation technique. Then he will not have to give orders, just suggestions, because the collaborators will not run at 100% because their objectives will be at stake. With this video course, we start with leadership and evolution in the development of organizations. Phase 1, the indifferentiation. Like all living beings, organizations, companies, as well as people, go through a series of phases in their evolution, such as biological evolution, specifically 3 phases that we are going to reveal and which are called from phase 1 the indifferentiation to phase 2 differentiation to the phase 3 integration. Let us start in the evolution in the development of the organizations with phase 1 as the phase of indifferentiation. It is a time in which the majority of the world's significant organizations and corporations, both small and large, as well as multinational corporations, started. When a person has a wonderful idea and wants to put it into action, he is the pioneer full of enthusiasm that infects and spreads to his friends and family that surrounds him. He looks for funding from people he knows and trusts, as well as banks, and he starts his firm as a pioneer in every unplanned and disorganized manner where everyone does everything. We are in phase 1 of the indifferentiation. That person as a pioneer feels everything in the company and all collaborators are in sync with the boss. Everyone does everything. They are working tasks in production, selling, accounting, packaging. This is indifferentiation. This provides great flexibility, and as there are few clients at the beginning, they are attending wonderfully, so clients are very satisfied. In phase 1, the leadership is autocratic and intrusive. Autocratic because the power is in one single person, who is not discussed at all, and everyone is delighted to obey because he is the pioneer. And it is also an intrusion leadership, because the leader, in addition to being the pioneer, is a skillful one, very capable that when a collaborator is doing something that the leader does not like, he goes and intrudes and does it himself. And he does it well, and the collaborators admire his boss' great skills and do not feel annoyed by his intrusion. Because we are in phase 1 and the leader feels expand everything. Phase 1, the characteristics. Autocratic leadership, direct communication, orientation to the person, improvisation. We are a great family, good customer knowledge, but difficult personal development in this small company. Everything goes well at the beginning, but success calls for success and makes the business grow. With more clients, but soon problems begin to appear because clients grow and everything is not reached with the same efficiency and agility as initially with fewer clients. So yes, this causes phase 1 crisis to appear, and its etiology is that, yes, there are social changes, new technological developments, new products appear, there are changes in the market, new sales techniques emerge. So the symptoms of phase 1 crisis are lower income, leadership conflict, customer complaints grow, there is less room for maneuver, there is a blockage in communication, and lower motivation. All this is indicating to us that the organization in phase 1 of the indifferentiation does not give for more. We are in crisis of phase 1, and the exit to phase 1 crisis is to enter into phase 2, differentiation. A crisis is not always a bad thing. It refers to a state shift that is required for the natural and positive evolution of the living organism, that is our organization, our company. Human beings also go through these phases, and they are crises in our evolution. And what's more, since we are conceived human beings, evolved from the beginning, going from phase 1, the indifferentiation, in the bosom of our mother, to phase 2, the differentiation, in which the organs of the new being are differentiating, and to phase 3, integration, when the new being is born complete. And once born, there is a crisis of natural changes every 7 years in the evolution of humans. We are talking about phase 2, differentiation. This is the current state of affairs for the vast majority of organizations in the commercial sector. In phase 2, the leadership is command, which does not intrude, as in phase 1, but command you, with two functions. One, give orders, what to do and how to do it, and two, check that they are met. Who has to do the what and when and how to do it? There are 4 types of phase 2 leaders: authoritarian, regulatory, persuasive, and group leader. Let's see their profiles. Authoritarian leader. 1. Base his authority on his rights and superior knowledge. 2. His main demand to his subordinates, obedience. 3. The main demand of him with himself, energy and firmness. 4. The requirement to achieve maximum results, firm leadership and discipline. 5. Characteristics of his subordinates, laziness. 6. Way of expressing himself, you will do. Regulatory leader. 1. Base his authority on rules and regulations. 2. His main demand to his subordinates, follow the instructions given. 3. His main demand of himself, objectivity. 4. The requirement to achieve maximum results, clear instructions. 5. Characteristics of his subordinates, individualism without planning. 6. Way of expressing himself, you should. Persuasive leader. 1. Base his authority on, sell his ideas to people, to collaborators, personal influence, flexibility, ability to negotiate. 2. His main demand to his subordinate, trust and gratitude. 3. His main demand on himself, flexibility and vitality. 4. The requirements to achieve maximum results, individual support and encouragement. 5. Characteristics of his subordinates, a positive reaction when they are influenced in a persuasive way. 6. Way of expressing himself, You can. Group leader. 1. Base his authority on acceptance of the group and individuals. 2. His main demand to his subordinate, initiative and cooperation. 3. His main demand on himself, respect for the ability and opinion of others. 4. The requirement to achieve maximum results, take advantage of the motivations and initiative of others. 5. Characteristics of his subordinates. They find the work interesting, they influence and contribute to results. 6. Way of expressing himself. We can. The characteristics of phase 2 are mechanization, standardization, specialization of functions and levels and processes, coordination of unity of command, limitation of control of staff and line, and remuneration according to results, communication. The etiology causes of the phase 2 crisis are: usually there is some stiffness and isolation. Then among the symptoms, what is called the Taifas kingdoms arise in the companies where each department considers itself its own company and makes work on its own, having lost the sense of the company as a whole. So the symptoms of the phase 2 crisis are in communication, line and staff problems, low motivation, special actions occur. All this means that we are already in a phase 2 crisis. The natural way out of phase 2 crisis is phase 3 integration. In phase 1, in differentiation, the priority subsystem important in that phase was the technical subsystem, that is the technical aspect of our product and services which we started the business. In phase 2, the differentiation, the priority subsystem will be the economic subsystem, that is, the emphasis is on production. And in the phase 3 integration, the priority subsystem will be the human social factor, that is, people. The human being in phase 3 of integration retakes the prominence that he has lost in phase 1, where the technology was the important thing, as in the phase 2, where the economic was the important thing. Now in phase 3, it is the human social factor that regains prominence, since he is capable of integrating the technical and the economic for the benefit of the entire organization. Also in phase 3, the emphasis is placed on commercial and marketing tasks, rather than on the technical and production of phase 1 and 2. Phase 3 is the development phase of the human social subsystem. It is the phase in which the integration of the human social subsystem with the technical and economic subsystem takes place. And all this leads us to a new concept of organization. Make it possible for each employee in the company who wants for this motivation and can for this training act intelligently at the service of the whole. And all this unfolds little by little. What is intelligence? Carl Sagan, the well-known NASA astrophysicist and creator of the extraordinary production and video collection The Cosmos, said, "Knowing a lot is not the same as being smart. Intelligence is not only information, but also the judgment to handle it." And I say it in another way, but with the same sense. Intelligence is understanding the relationship between things the relationship between the contents of information of knowledge. Remember, qualities of the conscious soul. The current time of human evolution are, among others, know and understanding. Knowing is understanding. Understand the relationship between things. And today we, the leaders who manage our organizations, must develop intelligence to know and understand the complexity of the complexity that is the modern company. In phase 3 leadership, we find 3 types of leaders. 1. Lateral transversal, without authority leader. That is, it does not need to exercise it, and the following occurs. When the leader can develop all his knowledge and skills derived from his personal and professional category, which will allow him to exert of the necessary influence with his collaborators about their approaches, ideas, and objectives, and without the need to resort to a relationship of authority. 2. The leader of permission. He is the one who selects the permission, who is selective to allow others to do, all based on what he has, good information, and selects the subsystem that will work or will become a priority. An example, our brain does not command. It does not develop the leadership of command, but permission. The brain does not say communicate to the subsystem. You must act. That is the command. And yes, you can act. That is permission. And all this based on having all the information that comes through the nervous system. 3. The leader by exception. This leader leaves his doors open and says to his co-workers, "Come to me when you exceptionally need my help." Therefore, stimulate personal initiative and self-control. But for all this, it will be necessary to complete the evolutionary process in human beings that says, from greater knowledge, greater consciousness. The greater consciousness, the greater freedom. From greater freedom, greater responsibility. Therefore, phase 3 leadership can be exercised by those leaders of phase 3 integration, since their collaborators have already evolved according to knowledge, consciousness, freedom, responsibility. The price of freedom is responsibility. The second theme of the course is what are the main traits to build our profile of a leader of excellence? Today, when discussing the profile of the leader of excellence, we'd like to highlight the 15 traits that define the path to realizing all of the potential that each of us possesses at birth, and not in order of importance, but following a natural order. Those 15 leader profile traits are: 1. Authority. Based on his knowledge, he knows more and has more and better rational and intuitive knowledge. 2. Paradigmatic. Exemplify the ideal in action. Lead by example. Facts, no words, is paradigmatic. Paradigm, example or exemplar, is something that serves as an example or model of how things should be done. Every action requires a leader to direct it. Lead by example. Leading is guiding. Leader not only of the company, but with anyone who needs us, its family, friends, collaborator, etc. 3. With self-control, self-esteem, self-confidence. The man and the society are unfinished projects. For that reason, it is necessary to act, to change for the better, accepting as leaders that we are in unfinished projects with a long evolutionary process. 4. Trustworthy. The real leader is trustworthy. How to integrate and generate trust between the leader and his followers. The generation of confidence is the essential element between the leader and the followers. Therefore, always keep the word given. 5. Direction through motivation. Know and understand your collaborators and their needs. The leader knows that orders are not enough to lead, since all people act based on their own goals. Hence, the leader never uses the instructions chain and does use the conviction chain. He can put his own goals as a leader in line with the different goals of his various followers, his collaborators. 6. People. Influence people. Going out to meet their desires, interests, and needs, appealing to the three potentialities of the human soul in their thinking, feeling, and willing. And to know the people, the leader is an expert in the use of the questioning technique. Knowing how to motivate, since motivation is the final reason for human behavior. Looking for the causes before the effects. 7. With physical and mental strength, with vitality and energy, along with emotional, moral, and spiritual strength. With charisma, gift of God, gift of attracting others by the leader, by his presence, by his words, and by his personality, based on his image and expression. 8. Action. A predisposition for action. The leader is the one who A. Commit people to action, B. Turns followers into leaders, and C. And he can turn leaders into agents of change, said Warren Bennis. With the values that guide the actions. Values such as Plato's 4 paradigm, the good doing the good, the beautiful feeling the beauty, the truth being able to discriminate, separating the right from the wrong, the good from the bad, etc., and the justice, valuing fairness, values that guide the actions. 9. The origin of leadership. Leaders are not born, they are made, mainly self-made. They look for know why before they know how. They look for causes before effects. They are problem solvers, developing the inductive method of analysis and the deductive method of synthesis. 10. Human factor. Importance of the human factor for the leader. Management is people, said the great guru of modern management, Peter Drucker. The importance of social skills such as short-term contactability, that is, how to get accepted as a person and as a leader quickly in the short term, and the long-term contactability, that is to say, to maintain the good feelings created in the short term, but now indefinitely achieving loyalty. Treat people as you would like to be treated. Be yourself. Be a good active listener. Encourage and motivate others continuously. Know how to motivate our collaborators by remembering that praise should always be done in public to generate a greater positive resonance, and that the reprimand Correcting the person should be done in private. To do this, use the sandwich technique. That's to say something positive first, now correct the point to amend second, and thirdly say something positive to the person again. That way, the correction or reprimand will be more easily accepted. The leader emphasizes strength and does not dramatize weaknesses. Let's remember the paragraphs of the Nobel Prize winner for literature, the Englishman Rudyard Kipling, in his universal poem If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same. 11. Vision. For a better tomorrow for your organization. High-level leadership reduces the level of uncertainty because the leader develops his anticipatory capacity, which is the one capable of knowing the impact that the decision of the present will have in the future. The leader as a guide can identify the way forward for a better world, a better tomorrow. The strategy of the leader of excellence is inseparable from effective leadership, where the know-why goes before the know-how. 12. Persistence and its value. The value of perseverance, of being persistent. Calvin Coolidge, 30th President of the United States, said, "Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with great talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistent determination alone are nearly omnipotent." Calvin Coolidge. 13. Moral hate. The moral hate of the leader. Saint-Exupéry, in his work The Little Prince, says, "The leader unites his training and talent at the service of his peers and delivers his qualities simply and selflessly." And someone said, "I am a leader, so I have to serve." And Sandra said, "He who wants to be great, serve." If you are looking for a master outside, you may not find him. If you look for it inside, sooner or later you will find him. 14. Efficiency and effectiveness. The effectiveness and efficiency of people. Difference between leaders and managers. Managers do the things right. They are efficient. Efficient is doing things right. Leaders do the right things. They are effective. Effectiveness is doing what needs to be done. Someone said that the leader is valued more for what happens when he is not there than for what he did when he is there. Likes simple structures. She follows the line of Ernst Friedrich Schumacher's in his book Small is Beautiful, since the small is not only beautiful but also productive. Close to followers, and in the organization close to clients, customer focus, productivity through people. 15. Hate leadership. That is, leaders of excellence. They believe in people's empowerment rather than control. Empowerment is not stealing responsibility from people. There are 6 aspects of leaders of excellence. Do the things that need to be done. Do them right. Make them the first time. Make them on time. Always do them like this. Do them with an economic vision, if it is in a company of the business world. The third theme of the course is the analysis of our profile as leaders, as well as the profile of the leadership in the leader of my organization. Now I'd like to suggest an interesting exercise that answers two questions. The first, how am I as leader? And the second, how is the leadership in my organization? For this, it will be necessary to remember the four leaders that still work in many organizations today, since they are leaders of phase 2 and that we have already studied, and they are 1. The authoritarian leader, 2. The regulatory leader, 3. The persuasive leader, and 4. The group leader. Once we remember their profiles, to keep them in mind, we are going to make 3 columns. In the first column at the top, we will put the 4 leaders. In the second column, how am I? And in the third column, how is the leadership of my organization, of my company, as shown in the diagram. The 4 leaders appear in the first column. In the second column, we make a distribution in percentages to adjust it to 100% of how am I. As for what percentage of each of those 4 leaders I consider that I have, and I adjust all of this 100% of my leadership. In the third column, that corresponds to what is the leadership of my company like, I do the same, distributing percentages according to what I consider is the mix of those leaders that correspond to the leadership of my organization, also adjusting it to 100%. If you want to stop the video for a moment to think about the relative percentages according them to 100% of how am I, and then the relative percentage also adjusting them to 100 of how is the leadership of my organization, of my company. After we've made the prior adjustment, we'll move on to a new table as shown in the diagram below, wherein 6 columns appear. In the first, the 4 leaders. In the second, a percentage between 0 and 10%. In the third, the percentage goes from 11 to 20%. In the fourth, the percentage goes from 21% to 30%. In the fifth, the percentage goes from 31 to 40%. And in the sixth, the percentage is higher than 40%. Now we are going to mark with colors the quadrant corresponding to the percentage of the column that we have already made of how am I. And once done, we started to mark with another color the quadrant corresponding to the percentage assigned to how is the leadership in my company. All this appears in the following scheme. Now we join the points that appear in the boxes of how am I with a single color, and then we join the points of the boxes of what is the leadership of my company with the other color. Possibly something will emerge that appears again in the diagram, where we see that in how am I, many times there is little of an authoritarian leader and regulatory leader, and a lot of persuasive leader and group leader. And on the contrary, in the line of the other color of how is the leadership of my company, here appears a lot of authoritarian and regulatory leader and little of persuasive and group leader. That is the line drawn from how am I and how is the leadership of my company. Many times they are equidistant, corresponding to an axis of symmetry. All this goes to say that we see ourselves with little authoritarian and regulatory leadership that are the least positive and with a lot of persuasive group leaders that are the most positive. And as we sometimes see the leadership of our organization, on many occasions we see it exactly the other way around. In short, how we see ourselves and how we see others. Because if this exercise was done by our collaborators, the same thing could happen, but in reverse. We will continue in the future expanding and deepening both the figure of the leader with his/her responsibilities, as well as in the development of the topics that are always of our interest, both on a personal and professional level. I encourage you to take a look and subscribe to all of our content in videos, articles and courses format at our Patreon address. Until a new occasion, regards.